At 1:46 a.m., Joshua Hayes was mopping the third row, the same as any other Tuesday. He paused, checking the wall clock. Almost time. A soft click. Console 7. The flight director station that had been dark for decades, powered on. The green CRT screen shimmered with static. Then a voice cut through. Flight, Houston. Status check. The voice paused, then repeated, Houston, you read?
Don't touch it. You signed the addendum. Just watch.
The wall clock ticked to 1:51. The console clicked off, the green glow fading instantly. For a long minute, Joshua stood frozen in the aisle, the only sound his own heartbeat. Then, with trembling hands, he resumed mopping, the mop bucket squeaking in the silence.
It was real. The 7 rules existed for a reason. And tonight, I became part of it.
8 months earlier, Joshua Hayes had reported for his first overnight shift at the Johnson Space Center. His supervisor, Eddie Torres, handed him a laminated sheet without a word.
Read all 7. Then sign the addendum on the back.
Rule 1. Console 7. Third row is not to be touched, polished, or photographed.
What's the deal with Console 7? Why the special rule?
It's a historic artifact, and it's got a mind of its own. Don't mess with it.
Joshua signed the addendum, acknowledging the console might spontaneously activate. Then Eddie led him into the historic mission control room. The rows of dark consoles stretched in the amber light. Eddie pointed toward the third row. That's Console 7. Don't even shine a flashlight on it.
It looked like any other dead console, but the rule made it feel like a tomb.
For the first few weeks, Joshua's shifts settled into a quiet routine. He noticed the other overnight cleaners never even glanced at the third row. One older man crossed himself whenever his mop bucket rolled too close to Console 7.
Why is everyone so spooked by that console? What aren't you telling me?
Just follow the rules, kid. They're there for a reason, and quit asking questions.
The word Tuesday was whispered like a curse among the cleaning crew. On his 4th Tuesday, the silence in the control room felt heavier, more expectant, as if the room itself was holding its breath. Another cleaner told him he'd see soon enough, then walked away without another word. Eddie caught him staring at the console one night, his expression unreadable.
Don't let it get in your head. You'll understand soon enough.
On Monday night, the supervisor confirmed Joshua would be alone the next evening. The knot in his stomach tightened. At 10 p.m. on Tuesday, Joshua pushed his mop bucket into the silent control room. The amber lights cast long shadows across the consoles. He cleaned methodically, but his eyes kept drifting to the wall clock. 11, midnight, 1 a.m. By 1:30 a.m., he was mopping the third row, just a few feet from Console 7. The room was dead quiet except for the HVAC hum.
Nothing's going to happen. It's just an old console.
But the silence pressed against him, heavy and expectant. He checked the clock again. 1:45.
You are being ridiculous. It's just a prank the old guys pull on newbies.
1:46. He stopped mopping and stood still, watching the dark screen of Console 7. The second hand swept past the 12. 1:47. A soft click shattered the silence. The CRT on Console 7 hummed to life, painting the third row in a pale green glow. Static crackled from the speaker, then resolved into a voice. Measured, professional, impossibly familiar.
Flight, Houston. Status check. I've heard that voice before. In old recordings, that's a flight director.
The voice paused, then repeated with a slight edge. Houston, you read? Joshua's heart thudded. Every nerve screamed at him to run, but his legs wouldn't move. At exactly 1:51, the console clicked off. The green light faded, leaving only the amber emergency lamps. He realized he'd been holding his breath. For a long minute, he stood frozen, staring at the dark screen. Then his knees buckled. He slid down against the polished floor, back against a cold metal console, hands shaking.
It's real. The 7 rules, the addendum, they weren't joking. I need to find out why that voice is still calling, what it means.
The next day, Joshua moved through his routine like a ghost, but his eyes kept darting, searching for evidence. He searched online for Apollo Mission Control Ghost, but found only tourist information and gift shop pages.
Eddie, what's the real history of Console 7? You've been here forever.
You didn't touch it, did you?
No, of course not. I am just curious about the history.
History's written. In the addendum you signed. Stick to cleaning.
The following Tuesday, at 1:47, the console powered on again. This time, he forced himself to stay in the room, to listen, to remember every word. The voice was identical. Same words, same pause, same click off at 1:51. But his fear had changed into something else. He began to anticipate Tuesdays with a kind of dread that bordered on obsession. The console was calling, and no one else would answer.
Whatever this is, it's not a ghost. It's a signal. And I am going to find out who's on the other end.
Weeks passed. Each Tuesday, Joshua positioned himself near Console 7 and listened, cataloging every detail. The voice never deviated. Same words, same clipped tone. But the static seemed to breathe, waxing and waning with the seasons. He began to notice a weariness in the cadence, a subtle drag on the final syllable, as if the speaker had been saying it for an eternity.
Why do you sound so tired? What are you waiting for?
Once, the silence after the call felt so heavy that he whispered, "I am here." He froze, horrified he might have broken the rule. The console remained silent, but the air in the room seemed to shift like a held breath. He started leaving a small digital recorder on the floor to capture the transmissions, though he never played them back outside the room.
I can't be the only one who knows. Someone else has to understand.
The profound loneliness in that voice became his own. He was the sole listener, and the call was not meant for him.
I need to find Margaret Chen. She's been here since the Apollo days. She might know.
At a retirement party for a veteran cleaner, Joshua overheard a name he had been searching for. An older cleaner mentioned Margaret Chen, the facilities manager who had been at JSC since the Apollo era, the only one who might talk about that cursed console. Joshua asked around. Everyone pointed to her, the keeper of institutional memory.
If I ask her, I am admitting I know what I shouldn't. But if I don't, I'll drown in this silence.
Months of hesitation. Then one morning, he sent her an email. Subject, janitorial concern. Margaret Chen replied within the hour. Her message was brief. Come to my office at 2 p.m. Joshua stood outside her door, the frosted glass reading. Facilities manager. He knocked. A sharp voice answered. Come in. He turned the knob and stepped inside. Margaret Chen sat behind a cluttered desk, her eyes sharp behind round glasses. She looked at him with a mixture of curiosity and wariness. The room felt charged with unspoken history, as if the very walls knew why he had come.
You've heard it, haven't you? Console 7, in the historic control room. That's why you are really here.
How did you know? Yes. I've been listening to it for months. I didn't touch it.
Margaret sighed and unlocked a drawer, withdrawing a yellowed folder marked classified. She placed it on the desk without opening it.
This is a 1993 internal memo. It details the anomaly you witnessed. I've been its custodian for over 20 years.
Console 7 powers on at 1:47 a.m. every Tuesday. It transmits audio on a frequency decommissioned in 1972. Deep Space Network occasionally receives a faint response telemetry, consistent with a spacecraft, on an Apollo 13 free return trajectory.
The telemetry shows the responding spacecraft is 47.3 astronomical units from Earth. That's beyond Pluto.
That's halfway to interstellar space. There's a real spacecraft still transmitting after 50 years.
We've never responded. Protocol forbids interference with an unknown intelligence, but I've kept records.
The voice wasn't a ghost. It was a crew, stranded in the dark, waiting for someone to answer.
The audio call is identical every week, but the telemetry response is live. Power levels, system temperatures, they change each time. That ship is still active.
She explained that the console was still patched to an old transmission line, routed through the Deep Space Network by oversight decades ago. Never decommissioned. The memo confirmed that every Tuesday since 1992, Console 7 had transmitted on a forgotten frequency and occasionally received a faint live telemetry response.
I've kept logs for 20 years, handwritten notes, audio cassettes, printouts, but I am nearing retirement. Someone needs to take over the watch.
She opened a drawer and pulled out a thick stack of logbooks and a box of cassette tapes, all labeled with Tuesday dates stretching back decades.
If you'll monitor Console 7 properly, record every telemetry change, every deviation, I'll share the entire archive with you, not just the public sanitized version.
She slid a fresh logbook and a new digital audio recorder across the desk toward him.
I'll do it. I've been listening for months already. I wanted to understand, but now I need to. I can't abandon them.
Then you are part of this now. The burden and the wonder. We are the only bridge to that ship.
I started as a janitor. Now I am the one who keeps the vigil for a crew that has been calling for 50 years, waiting for an answer.
Joshua placed the new digital recorder on the floor beside Console 7 every Tuesday, its red light pulsing in the dark. In a cramped supply closet during his off hours, he listened to the archive, headphones drowning out the world. The cassettes held identical calls, same words, same inflection, same 4-minute loop, years apart.
But the telemetry logs told a different story. Each week, the numbers shifted.
He compared a Tuesday in 1998 with one in 2005. The voice was a perfect copy. The response was not.
This doesn't make sense. If the voice is a recording, who's controlling the live telemetry?
He began to suspect the audio was a carrier wave, a fixed broadcast, while the real intelligence lay in the responsive data.
The voice wasn't the one waiting. It was the ship itself, its systems, maybe its AI.
Margaret's notes mentioned a faint binary pattern in the telemetry that had never been fully decoded.
I need to know what that ship is actually saying. The voice is just a door.
He took his findings to Margaret. The carrier wave, the live telemetry, the contradiction.
I've been waiting for you to notice. There's something I haven't shown you yet.
She handed him a thick printout of telemetry from 2004. The numbers had been carefully decoded into letters. The message repeated, all systems nominal, crew in stasis, awaiting contact.
It was fully decoded in 2005. That's when we understood the signal wasn't just random. It's a beacon.
Joshua stared at the words. The ship's automated systems had been calling out, expecting a reply for over 50 years.
We believe it's the ship's AI, or whatever passes for one. It's been patient, but it's waiting for us to answer.
They're not just transmitting, they're listening. And we've been silent. That's why the voice, it's a test. They think we're dead or abandoned them. We have to respond.
Margaret looked at him with a mixture of sorrow and warning. The rule was clear. No interference. That night, Joshua spread the telemetry logs across his kitchen table and plotted the spacecraft's trajectory. He overlaid Apollo 13's historical free return curve and found the initial path was identical.
But at the point where the real mission swung around the moon, this trajectory continued straight into the void.
The spacecraft had never aborted. It never came home. It was still out there, 47.3 astronomical units from Earth.
This isn't a ghost signal. It's a parallel mission. In another reality, those astronauts never came home.
The next afternoon, Joshua returned to Margaret's office and laid the star chart on her desk without a word.
It's a parallel mission. The crew never aborted. They've been outbound for 50 years.
Margaret looked at the chart for a long moment, her face unreadable. Then she took off her glasses and rubbed her eyes.
We suspected it. The telemetry lists 3 astronauts in stasis. They're real.
Then waiting isn't protocol. It's abandonment. I am going to answer them.
On a seemingly ordinary Tuesday, Console 7 powered on at 1:47 a.m., the green glow casting the same familiar shadows. Flight, Houston. Status check. The voice came through as always, but then it paused longer than usual, and then 3 words that had never been spoken before. Houston, do you copy?
That wasn't part of the loop. That was a question, directly to us.
A second phrase followed. The voice strained. Is anyone receiving? The recorder on the floor caught every word. Joshua's hand was already reaching for it before the console clicked off. He played the recording back immediately, kneeling on the cold floor, his heartbeat drowning out the ambient hum.
This is real. They know someone is here. They're trying to reach us.
The following Tuesday, the console reverted to the standard message. No deviation, no question.
That deviation wasn't a fluke. I have to tell Margaret. We can't pretend it didn't happen.
He found Margaret at her desk, her face weary. He placed the recorder on the cluttered surface and pressed play without a word. The voice crackled from the tiny speaker. Houston, do you copy? The silence that followed was deafening. Then, is anyone receiving? Margaret's expression froze.
In 30 years, I've never heard a deviation. This is unprecedented, but protocol is clear. We cannot answer. What if it alters their mission, their timeline?
They've been calling for almost 50 years. They think we're dead. This isn't interference. It's answering a distress call.
We don't know the consequences. For them, for us, for reality itself, you'd be risking everything.
I am not asking permission. I've already decided. I'll do it alone if I have to.
Then I can't stop you. But know this, if you transmit, your job, your future, all of it could be destroyed.
Thank you for everything, Margaret. I won't forget.
He walked out of her office, the recorder in his pocket, the weight of his decision settling like a stone. Within 3 days, he found a surplus military radio transmitter capable of reaching the decommissioned frequency. Margaret's archive included schematics of Console 7's audio circuits, showing exactly where the signal could be injected. He spread the prints across his apartment floor and traced every wire path with a pencil.
If I bypass the mic switch, I can key the transmitter without altering the console itself.
At his workbench, he soldered a small interface board, a toggle switch, a green LED, and a shielded audio input.
One flick of this switch, and I am talking to a ghost ship, 47 astronomical units away.
He tested the device on a Monday night, the control room silent, the console cold, but the LED blinked in response.
Tomorrow night, I am going to break the first rule and answer.
He barely slept, anxiety coiling in his stomach like a sickness. The rules had warned against interference for a reason. At 10 p.m. Tuesday, he pushed his mop bucket into the amber-lit control room. Knowing this was the last routine shift, he cleaned slowly, the squeak of the mop bucket, the only sound until 1:45. Then he set it aside and stood before Console 7. At 1:46, he connected his interface board to the console's audio input and concealed it behind a panel. At 1:47 exactly, the familiar click. The CRT glowed green. The voice began. Unwavering. Flight, Houston, status check. Joshua's hand trembled on the handheld mic. His throat was dry. The voice repeated. Houston, you read?
Houston here. We read you.
Static roared for what felt like an eternity. Then it cleared, and the voice returned. Sharper, alive. We copy, Houston. We are still here. Is the crew safe? The voice had a desperate edge, like a man hearing a reply after decades of silence.
The crew is safe. Earth is still here. You are not forgotten.
Silence. Then, a single word, heavy with meaning. Thank you. The console stayed on an extra 18 seconds before clicking off, as if listening to the silence that followed. The console did not power off when expected. Instead, the speaker crackled again, and the voice rushed back, urgent. Is the Earth still there? Did the war end? Are we remembered? The questions came in a flood, the voice straining with a lifetime of fear. Joshua steadied himself. This crew had been traveling for over 50 years, certain they were the last remnants of humanity.
Earth is here. There was no war. You are remembered.
Silence. Then the voice returned, softer. Thank you. We have waited so long to hear that. For the next 2 minutes, they exchanged brief data, trajectory confirmation, system status, and a list of the 3 astronauts in stasis. The green glow flickered as automated telemetry packets confirmed all systems nominal, the crew sleeping in their capsules. At 1:51, with a soft click, the console powered down. But this time, the silence felt like an ellipsis, not a period.
They're real. And now they know they're not alone. What have I just started?
He carefully disconnected his interface and resumed mopping. But the weight of the 7 rules had shifted from prohibition to purpose. The next day, he didn't wait for an appointment. He found Margaret at her desk and set the recorder down without a word.
You actually did it. I told you not to. Why are you here?
He pressed play. The recording crackled, his own voice first. Houston here. We read you. Then that desperate reply. We copy, Houston. We are still here. Margaret's expression shifted from anger to disbelief as the voice continued, asking if Earth still existed, if anyone remembered. Tears welled in her eyes.
God help them. They've been broadcasting for 48 years, hoping someone would hear. And now you've answered.
They're a parallel crew. 3 astronauts in stasis, far beyond Pluto. They think they're the last.
This changes everything. We can't report it. The official channels would shut it down, or worse, interfere.
I know. It stays between us. I'll keep the Tuesday watch. We'll talk to them, give them a lifeline.
You've crossed a line that was drawn 30 years ago, but I am not going to stop you. God help us all.
She sat back, wiping her eyes. The 7 rules had been transformed overnight from fearful restrictions into a sacred duty. In the following weeks, every Tuesday at Watsen Ichiji Yonsho Chinafan, Joshua connected his interface and answered the call without hesitation. The voice identified itself as Odyssey, the ship's AI, custodian of 3 astronauts in stasis, and carrier of their last messages.
Odyssey shared the crew names. James Lovell, Jack Swigert, Fred Hayes, the same astronauts, but from a timeline where they never came home.
It relayed their recorded hopes, their farewell messages to a world that never came for them, and the terror of being erased from memory. Margaret helped catalog the exchanges, but the Tuesday vigil was his alone to keep. He became their anchor in the void. One Tuesday, the console remained on past 151, the green glow pulsing gently, and the voice asked a question it had never asked. The voice said, with a weight that traveled 47 astronomical units, "Will you stay with us until the end?" Joshua stared at the dark console beyond the glow, the green light reflecting in his eyes, and understood the weight of the request.
As long as I am here, I promise.
He knew the end might come with his own mortality, long before their signal faded into cosmic noise. But until then, he would be their lifeline. Years passed. Joshua still cleaned the historic control room, though the gray in his hair had deepened. The digital recordings numbered 213, each one a Tuesday he had never missed. He never transcribed them. The conversations were etched in his memory, each pause and syllable.
Someday the signal will fade, the AI will fail, or the distance will be too great. But until then, every Tuesday, I am here.
He sometimes thought about that day, the spacecraft getting too far, the crew's stasis ending in the dark. The ritual remained unchanged. He would arrive at 10 p.m., clean the room, and wait for the console to power on.
This isn't just a job anymore. It's a promise, and I'll keep it as long as I can breathe.
He never spoke of it outside the amber-lit room, but the weight of being their sole listener had become a quiet center he carried everywhere. And each Tuesday, at 1:47, when the console hummed to life and the familiar voice asked for a status check, he was there to answer.
Odyssey, Houston, all quiet here. We're still listening.
By day, Mission Control is a museum, a monument to courage. Tourists walk past Console 7 without knowing its secret. But at night, in the amber glow, a janitor and a voice across space-time share a vigil. The 7 rules exist for a reason. Console Sanabio Teal turns on every Tuesday at Wozen Ichiji Yonshu Enefun. Now it's answered. The giant projection screen, usually blank, now displays a single radar blip at 47.3 AU, a trajectory line extending into the void. The journey continues. Somewhere, in the dark between stars, a spaceship called Odyssey still transmits, its crew sleeping in stasis. They know someone is listening. They are not alone. Joshua Hayes, night janitor, keeps the promise until the end of his days, and when his time comes, another will take up the vigil, because the 7 rules demand it. The voice from another reality still calls out every Tuesday. And now, it will never go unanswered. Odyssey, Houston. We're still here.